Majestic revelations can stir the soul, don't you think? Well, my friends, that's precisely what we'll be discussing today. The subtle yet profound ways an avoidant individual experiences heartbreak and deploys a repertoire of strategies to shield themselves from the rawness of loss. We're going to explore a fascinating topic: how avoidants feel after breakup. 5 avoidant deactivation strategies. Right from the outset, it's crucial for all of us to understand that beneath the seemingly composed or stoic exterior, there can be an elaborate tempest brewing. So let us embark on this captivating journey, unraveling what truly goes on inside the avoidant mind, both the heartbreak they hesitate to acknowledge and the methods they use to keep others at bay. Now, when I say avoidant, I'm referring to individuals who tend to be wired with a deep-seated fear of too much closeness, too much intimacy, too much vulnerability. They're the ones who, on the surface, appear calm, independent, and perfectly self-sufficient even when the earth is trembling beneath their feet. After a breakup, it can look like they've quickly released their attachments and soared away like a bird freed from captivity. Yet as we unfold this topic, you may discover that there's so much more beneath that serene facade. A complex network of mental and emotional maneuvers designed to keep feelings at bay, or, at the very least, under strict lock and key. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. We shall name these maneuvers, these 5 avoidant deactivation strategies, and endeavor to examine each with a discerning eye. Let me list them for you, but not without weaving into them the hints and flavors of real human stories, for only then can we do justice to the emotional tapestry that emerges when relationships dissolve. The strategies are self-reliance, emotional suppression, idealization, focus on flaws, and intellectualization. Each has its particular cunning, so it's worth peering behind the curtain to see what illusions or truths are being concealed. 1. Self-reliance, the mirage of personal independence. Let us start with self-reliance, that grand illusion of independence. Now, don't misunderstand me. Self-sufficiency, self-empowerment, these can be very respectable qualities indeed. Life can be unkind, and it helps to have the means to stand on one's own 2 feet. Yet for many avoidants, that particular brand of fierce self-reliance springs more from fear than from genuine confidence. In the immediate aftermath of a breakup, such individuals may act as though it's all water under the bridge, refusing a friendly ear, declining the company of loved ones, and spurning any offers of comfort. "I am fine," they say with a crisp nod. Perhaps you've heard it before. I recall a gentleman named Edgar, brilliant mind, immaculate posture, the type who'd been raised in an environment where vulnerability was deemed a form of weakness. After his relationship fell to pieces, he managed to push through daily life as if his partner had never existed. He worked diligently, kept up with tasks, never missed a beat. Indeed, he was the portrait of stoic resilience. And yet, if you looked closer, you could see the cracks in the armor, the slight hesitation in his gaze when a favorite song came on, the way he clenched his jaw at mentions of romance. He was self-reliant to a fault, constructing a fortress around his heart and declaring himself wholly impervious to heartbreak. But a fortress is also a prison, my friends, and the deeper truth is that by never admitting his pain, he denied himself the possibility of true healing. This intense fixation on going it alone eventually backfires in quiet, excruciating ways. The moment the dust settles and solitude takes hold, that unspoken sense of loss begins to whisper. Softly, persistently. It can become insomnia, or a mysterious lack of appetite, or a sudden surge of anger at the smallest annoyance. And ironically, it can even make an avoidant partner cling to a sense of, "I must be perfect at all times," thus intensifying the loneliness. So self-reliance in moderation is lovely, but beware when it becomes a cover that says, "I need no one." 2. Emotional suppression, the art of burying what hurts. Next, consider the second strategy, emotional suppression. Now, for many avoidants, the heartbreak of a breakup is so daunting, so overwhelming, that their best method of dealing with it is simply locking it away. Out of sight, out of mind, at least that's the theory. The real trick, of course, is that concealed emotions do not fade gently into oblivion. Rather, they lurk in the corners of the psyche, piling up like unread letters demanding one's attention. Picture a dam along a mighty river. You can hold back the water for a while, but if the pressure builds too high, the dam might crack. The same principle applies here. Emotional suppression can lead to a backlog that eventually shows up in unexpected forms. Perhaps psychosomatic aches, short tempers, or bursts of anxiety that appear completely unrelated to the original heartbreak. It becomes quite a puzzle, doesn't it? I remember a story about a woman named Serena. She was the epitome of calm under pressure, or so it seemed. Even when her relationship ended on a sour note, you'd think she was discussing the weather. "I'm quite all right," she would say. "We parted ways. No big deal." But weeks later, she began having panic attacks, each as sudden as lightning. Her daily routine was consumed by this puzzling sense of dread, as though she were being pursued by invisible ghosts. Only much later did she realize that all that heartbreak, all that betrayal she experienced, she had stuffed it down, and now it was clamoring to be felt. Serena's journey involved slowly opening up to the pain and letting herself acknowledge the heartbreak rather than glossing over it with a polite nod. A difficult path, but in the end, she found solace in feeling rather than denying her emotions. 3. Idealization, crafting a phantom partner. We turn now to the third strategy, idealization. It might sound counterintuitive because one might suppose an avoidant who flees intimacy would hardly be the type to pine for a past partner. But indeed, some avoidants cope by painting their former relationship in angelic hues, creating this fantastic notion of a perfect bond that can't possibly be replaced. It stands apart from actual life, a museum piece perhaps. This so-called phantom ex becomes the shining relic of yesteryear that no future partner can match. At times, it functions as a brilliant excuse to avoid forging new relationships or truly opening up to new people. "Ah," says the avoidant mind, "there was this one match for me, but it was lost. Now no one else can compare." The person basically locks themselves in a gilded cage, worshipping the memory of a love that could, in reality, have been quite flawed indeed. One dear fellow, let's call him Marcus, regaled me with his repeated proclamations that his former partner was absolute perfection. Mind you, the same partner he previously criticized non-stop. Despite having ended their tumultuous union, he turned her memory into a flawless daydream. "She was the only one who truly understood me," he declared, ignoring the tangible fights and irreconcilable differences that once drove him up the wall. He was so caught up in that ghostly image of perfection that the notion of meeting someone new felt ridiculous. "Why bother?" he'd say. "No one could ever measure up." And so he remained, locked in that strange limbo of longing, neither reconciling with his former partner, nor allowing another soul to penetrate that romantic haze. 4. Focus on flaws, the defensive dartboard. Now let us sashay to the other side of the coin, the hyper-focus on a partner's flaws. While one avoidant might idealize a lost relationship to keep emotional vulnerability at bay, another might do the opposite, magnify every little misstep or imperfection, turning their ex into a veritable villain. It's a way to justify the heartbreak, to feel justified in detaching. She was far too clingy. He never understood me. They had an awful habit of stealing the duvet at night. Well, perhaps the duvet thief is more comedic than tragic, but you get my drift. I've watched good people, in the aftermath of a breakup, latch onto the narrative that their ex was unworthy or unkind, even if the relationship had many beautiful moments. This perspective can mutate into a sort of self-righteous indignation, providing an immediate sense of relief. I was right to leave, while masking the deeper sorrow or regret that might exist underneath. It's not that genuine hurt doesn't exist. Sometimes the ex truly did behave poorly, but avoidance might cling to those flaws like a banner, using it to wave off any uncomfortable longing. One woman, Lydia, found herself listing her ex's shortcomings at every opportunity. She was too critical, too impulsive, too this, too that, she'd say, puffing herself up with the conviction that she had made the correct choice to end things. And yet, her nights were sleepless, plagued by dreams of the sweet moments they once shared. That dissonance gnawed at her sense of peace, until she realized she was using her ex's flaws as an emotional shield. Admitting she missed him felt as though it would unravel her entire worldview, so she kept hoisting that shield day after day, never allowing her deeper emotions to surface. 5. Intellectualization, turning emotions into data. And finally, the fifth strategy, intellectualization. Ah, yes, that cunning trick of dissecting one's emotional life as if it were a scientific experiment. These are the folks who, at the end of a relationship, might ramble at length about the statistics of breakups, the biological underpinnings of attraction, the sociological patterns of divorce rates. It's all quite fascinating, truly, and knowledge can indeed be power. But for avoidance, it can also be a neat strategy to sidestep the quake of their own feelings. I once knew a chap named Nicholas who could quote relationship studies with such precision, you'd think he was a professor of heartbreak. You know, he'd say, 47% of relationships that start online end before the 2-year mark. Possibly true, though his figure may have been slightly off. The point is, he wore his rational thinking like a protective cloak. Any conversation about vulnerability or longing was swiftly diverted into a discussion of bell curves, sample sizes, and psychological theories. Impressive, yes, but it reeked of avoidance. He was holding heartbreak at arm's length by rationalizing it into oblivion. Now, there's nothing wrong with gleaning insights from research. The pitfall arises when data becomes the armor that prevents acknowledging one's own heartbreak and regrets. After all, the heart's language is rarely purely rational. Sometimes it's a swirl of sorrow and tenderness that cannot be translated into simple bullet points. So, we have these 5 strategies: self-reliance, emotional suppression, idealization, focus on flaws, and intellectualization. Each one can seem perfectly logical from the vantage point of the avoidant mind. They serve the purpose of maintaining that core sense of safety. I won't be hurt again. I won't let anyone close enough to see my wounds. The irony is that in preserving this safety, avoidants often also isolate themselves from the joys of true closeness, understanding, and healing after a breakup. Now, if you see a reflection of yourself or someone you love in these strategies, do keep in mind that healing is absolutely possible. Avoidant attachment, in its essence, is not a permanent life sentence. Rather, it's an adaptation forged by life experiences, perhaps repeated instances of having your needs dismissed or overshadowed, or a long history of having to be the strong one without a helping hand. Understanding these roots can pave the way toward more fulfilling emotional experiences. But let's be honest, transformations don't happen overnight. They involve gentle introspection, and sometimes professional guidance or supportive communities that offer the safety to unravel old beliefs. Often it means not only reading about new concepts, but also applying them in real life, reaching out for help when you want to retreat, daring to be vulnerable even if your instinct screams otherwise, or acknowledging, with utmost honesty, that a breakup has wounded you and you need time to mend. In my years of observing and counseling such individuals, I've seen wonders occur when someone bravely decides to face their heartbreak head-on. Yes, tears may flow, and yes, there might be regrets and confessions, and yet, through that intense vulnerability, there emerges a freer, more authentic sense of self. What once was a fortress can become a home, where the windows are open and fresh air breezes in. Let me share a glimpse of hope before we go our separate ways. Some individuals who began with an avoidant style have grown into incredible partners, loving, tender, and supportive. One couple I recall, Celeste and Anthony, had nearly dismantled their bond because each was employing a different side of attachment insecurities. Anthony was avoidant, Celeste anxious. Their relationship was like two magnets flipping from attraction to repulsion depending on the day. But through deliberate, thoughtful work, counseling, reading, practicing new habits, they found a middle ground. Anthony learned how to identify his emotional guardrails, and Celeste recognized how to self-soothe without smothering him. The result? A surprisingly robust bond that neither had ever imagined possible. Take heart if you stand in the ashes of a broken relationship, especially if you identify with any of these avoidant traits. Recognizing them is the first crucial step. If you find yourself using elaborate justifications, logic or criticism or illusions of a perfect ex, you can pause and ask, am I actually protecting myself from pain I'm afraid to feel? You might begin to notice a whisper of truth, that your heart actually cares very much, that you are not so indifferent after all. From there, you can start to see, with gentle eyes, the swirl of emotions inside you. Grief, relief, regret, or even longing. And you might do something quite astonishing. Let them be there. Invite those feelings in. Cry if you must. Talk to a counselor or a friend. Or if you're alone, explore your interior world through writing or quiet reflection. That's where genuine healing blossoms. And so, dear listener, we've explored how avoidants feel after breakup, 5 avoidant deactivation strategies. We've peered into the hearts of those who appear to heal with the snap of a finger, but in truth, wrestle with hidden storms. We've considered the illusions they cultivate, either clinging to a mirage of independence or burying their heartache under enough data and logic to fill a library. We've seen that the script of focusing on faults or cherishing an idealized memory can become a lullaby that soothes fear while preventing growth. Know that to break free from these cycles involves courage and perhaps some guidance, be it through relationship coaches, counselors, or supportive circles of fellow travelers on the path. The transformation is not a matter of flicking a switch. It's more akin to learning a new language, one that may feel foreign at first, but holds the promise of forging deeper, more meaningful connections in the future. Step by step, you begin to see that authenticity is far more liberating than any fortress of stoicism. Imagine, if you will, a dim corridor in an old, grand house. Heavy drapes, shadows at every corner. One day, you open the windows, let in some sunshine, watch the dust motes dancing in the rays of light. You realize it's not so frightening anymore, that darkness and light can coexist, and that your heart might be more resilient than you initially believed. This, I believe, is what awaits those who dare to confront the heartbreak lurking beneath their carefully polished strategies. So whether you are the avoidant soul, quietly nursing your wounds, or the ex-partner who wonders why your loved one seemed to vanish without a trace of sorrow. May these insights serve as a map of sorts, pointing you toward a deeper comprehension of the avoidant experience. And should you seek a better way forward, take solace in knowing that transformation is possible. Indeed, it can be unexpectedly beautiful. Thank you for journeying through these reflections with me. I encourage you to reflect on which of these 5 strategies resonates most deeply with your own experiences or those of someone you know. Realize that acknowledging the truth beneath the veneer of calm is half the battle won. And if you feel compelled to explore more, whether through personal research or by enlisting professional help, by all means, do so. We are shaped by the relationships we have, and healing from heartbreak is one of the most human endeavors of all. After all, to open oneself to love, even after enduring loss, is an act of bravery indeed. Farewell for now, and may you discover both the insight and the gentle strength to embrace what truly lies within. And just perhaps, when heartbreaks inevitably cross our paths, we'll find that facing them honestly and tenderly is a far richer path than any illusion of indifference could ever be.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.